Welcome to the Andy Staples Show. We're going to piss you off today. I'm just telling you that right now. Ari's scared to death.
I'm actually scared to make people upset. I'm tired of it.
You got to get used to it, Ari. You just have to accept the fact that it happens. And we're just talking about sports. People aren't really that mad. Well, some people are, but not everyone.
Yeah. Let's just start the show off by just saying, I think I could speak for both of us. We did the best we could here.
We did.
This is hard. It's subjective. Recency bias.
Yes.
Overall outlook, like all of it comes into play.
And things have changed, like coaching. So here's what we're doing. We are going to pick. We're building off what we did on yesterday's show. Yesterday's show, we ranked the teams, the football teams belonging to the schools that are in basketball Sweet 16, which was fun. We're trying to decide whether Xavier or Creighton or Gonzaga would have a better team if they actually had football teams. And we decided, what's the Sweet 16 of college football right now? And that could mean a lot of things to a lot of people. You know, we've done a lot of rankings where we talk about pie in the sky, like ceiling, like if everybody recruited to their potential and all that. This is not that. This is what you've been doing, but it's not necessarily all that you've been doing, because maybe you kind of were middling team. You had a coaching change and suddenly you got good. Or maybe you were good, then you had a coaching change and now you're middling, but we still remember when you were good. And so it's not the easiest thing to do. I kind of tended toward forward looking. So if you're on the upswing, you had a better chance of landing in my Sweet 16.
So here are the things that people have to prepare themselves for. And I think it is really big brand name teams who have recruited well not being represented at all on the list. Right? Like, did that happen with you?
Yeah. I mean, so there's one school that I feel like I conveniently forget every time we're listing programs that have been really good in the past few years. And I made a point to put them in here and put them in a place that I felt like they deserved.
I think I know what program that is.
Yeah.
But there are some big time programs that we spend a lot of time discussing on this show. Not here.
List. Not here. Nope. You're right. And you got to have some results on the field. And so that was the other thing when we discussed this. I wanted to do it because it gave us a chance, because we talk about recruiting so much and who gets the best classes, but the results on the field have to matter too. Having a plan as a coach, having an identity, knowing what you're recruiting to, understanding how to develop, all that stuff matters. And I think I feel like we've got some schools in here that we're honoring for that. We've also, like, I've got one that if you look at the last 5 years, there's no way you'd put them on there. But if you look at the last one and you look at the trajectory of the last three, you go, you know what? I see it. So,
and we are going to be all over the place, because I can tell you and I are. I don't think that you and I are going to, like yesterday when we did the ranking the top the basketball Sweet 16 programs, like we were basically identical.
Dead on, yeah.
Like, I don't think that we're going to be anywhere near each other on this, because success is subjective. Yes. How much do you weight conference championships is subjective. Exactly. What about playoff wins? Do you give more credit for a playoff win rather than just making the playoff? What about the recency of that playoff win? Like, it is a disaster.
Yeah.
In the most beautiful way. I mean,
that's the best part. But the thing is, like an actual Sweet 16 in basketball is like that too. It's never what you thought it was going to be when the bracket came out. It's always got some other schools in it. And like Arkansas is a good example of this. Like, if you looked at Arkansas this year, they're trying to get to their third consecutive Elite Eight. They've not necessarily played in the regular season in ways that would get them to the Elite Eight, but they're just always there, it seems like. So sometimes it's just a team winds up there and you're like, hey, all right, welcome.
And the other thing too is, like, what do you do with a team like Colorado?
I don't put them in this for sure. Not
but
yet.
It's hard because they transformed in the snap of a finger in the middle of the offseason.
Are you wearing the right socks, Ari? Do I have to kick you out of here for not wearing the right socks?
I'm actually not wearing socks at all, which I got a lecture for my wife in a positive way.
Jim McElwain's never wearing socks in his life, as far as I can tell.
I don't know. There are two things that I found out about myself that are weird before we start. I want to get your take on this.
Oh, do tell.
my wife was like giving me, she's the most loving, sweet person on the face of the earth. I'm so happy she puts up with me, but she has to put me in my place sometimes. One, she said there are times where we have people over and I'm not wearing socks, and she thinks no man's feet should be exposed with company.
Feet are gross. All right. Yeah, feet are gross. I'm
if I have like friends that I've known for years over, I still have to put socks on.
Well, they know your feet are gross, so that there should be a pass for them.
Yeah. And also, too, she said that and this is going to be a lovely thought process for everybody who listens to the show, but I rarely wear a shirt when I'm at home alone. Mm-hmm. Or like when
tarp off, baby.
It's tarps off season. And she said that I am shirtless more than most men ever would be. And she thinks that's strange too. So
Sorry, I know what you're doing in your off-season regimen here.
Yeah, I'm manifesting.
You are going to have a great reason to be shirtless at all times. Like I
you wear on shirtless in front of your family ever?
All the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
I live in Florida. Like, what do you want me to do? It's hot.
Yeah. She thinks that I don't wear a shirt a lot, and like I'll FaceTime her without wearing a shirt because I'm home alone, and then people see it and they go, "Why does your husband never wear a shirt?" And then it's there's no way to cook up some spiciness than calling your wife at work without a shirt on. But I'm going to work on those two things: covering the feet and wearing a shirt.
You could help with that. Like if you're calling her, if you're FaceTiming her, knowing she's at work,
I should probably put a shirt on.
You could tarp up for that.
Yes.
That's on you.
Because people walk by her desk and they're like, "Why does Ari never wear a shirt?" Like, I guess apparently it has become a thing. So,
I just love that her entire office knows what you look like. Tarp off. That's
yes,
great.
Yeah, tarp off. Yeah, I mean, hey, I am what I am. Okay, so how do you want to start this? Should we start from the top since it's probably less exciting as you?
Yeah,
it's more exciting as you get down.
I think we definitely know who our top two are. I don't know if they're the same order, but I think we know who our top.
It's the same exact disagreement probably that we had when we did the last discussion,
the recruiting ceiling one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think Alabama should still be number one. I know that Georgia has won back-to-back championships, but I don't know that they are the undisputed king of the sport, and I am convinced that Alabama will win another one. And once they do, it'll revert
I think
right
Saban's
back.
got one more in him, but I was on Unnecessary Roughness, and Brandon Walker asked me, "Can Kirby be Nick Saban at Georgia? Can he put up those kind of numbers?" Listen. They're second and 26 pass away from Kirby already having 3 national titles at Georgia. Like, it can happen, and it is as Nick Saban predicted. It's the craziest thing because Nick Saban predicted his own nemesis essentially, and helped create his own nemesis because Kirby was working there. So
yeah, and I think that like it's okay to think that it could happen or it will happen. I don't know if what Saban has done will ever be duplicated, especially now that winning a national championship got even harder with the expanded playoff. Well, maybe easier. I don't know. Maybe it's the same.
Maybe easier if you got a roster like Georgia's.
Yeah. But I don't know that has happened yet. So I'm still holding on to Alabama as the top program in college football. I don't know if that's upsetting to some people, but I think it's rational.
I don't think anybody other than Georgia fans would get upset about that. I think that's perfectly reasonable. I also think.
But did you make the jump?
Yeah, I got Georgia number 1. Yeah, but I've been again. I put this all back on Nick Saban because he's the one who said this for years. That if Georgia ever got the right guy, it's over, and that happened. So Georgia 1, Alabama 2 for me. Now we get to one. I think we're in a situation where I think we both probably have the next 2 are the same schools, and I don't know the order, and I struggle with
I don't know that they are going to be the same schools.
Oh, okay, now we're talking.
Well, the number one struggle here as big Buckeye homer Ari Wasserman is where to rank Ohio State in respect to Michigan. Because
this is the question.
This was going to set the tone for the entire list. And I had a really hard time with it. Okay. So like, if I am being frank, which program do I think is better?
Come on, Buckeye Homer.
I still think Ohio State's football program is better, right?
Homer. Homer. Who's won the last 2 games, Ari?
The last 2 games were Michigan.
Oh, there we go. That's why I have Michigan number 3. Now, could Ohio State jump them by beating them this year? Yeah, absolutely. But I have them 3 and 4, and it is essentially a tie. It really is.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that made it harder for me is that nowhere else on my list did I take head-to-head results into the thought process. And nowhere on the list did I take conference championships as the end-all, be-all.
Right. And I'm not necessarily taking conference championships. The head-to-head in this one, just because of the dynamics of this particular head-to-head,
and that's
basically
fair.
puts you in the playoff.
And I don't lose any sleep by flipping them. But I also took into account that Ohio State was likely a field goal away from winning the national title last year.
Mm-hmm.
And even with the 2 down years that Ohio State just had losing to Michigan, or maybe not down years, good teams that was just beaten by a better team, Ohio State still was on the doorstep of doing something that Michigan still seems way further away from doing. So, like, from that standpoint, I don't know if I truly believe, like, I think that you could say that Michigan claims to be the owner of the Big Ten right now and, like, get on board with that. But if my life depended on it, or you gave me ass juice in my neck and you said which team will win a national championship first, which is kind of what I'm thinking when I'm thinking of the Sweet 16, then I don't think I would pick Michigan.
Can I say something slightly controversial? Because I actually think
how about you be the guy for once? Yeah.
After Georgia and Alabama, I think we've now entered the realm of flawed teams. Like
all of them, yeah.
Yeah.
And like listen too, like here's
Ohio State's defense doesn't get significantly better. They're not winning another national championship for a long time. Yeah.
If Ohio State has another year like this and signs, and this is crazy because, like I said, the tone of the program and the way it went, you do know how close they were to potentially winning a national championship last year. That's how funny this whole thing is. But if Ohio State loses to Michigan again and misses the playoff again, they made it, but misses it again like they did in the 16 or 17 and 18.
They're going to make it in the 12 team, but yeah, they could.
But Ohio State could drop from 3 to 8 or 9 or 10 on my list. Like I think they're in very shaky territory, like because they are not trending upward.
If the defense proves to be unfixable under this current administration, and it's interesting because we've had this discussion about Lincoln Riley and his philosophies. We've not really had it about Ryan Day, though. I talked to some players about it before the Peach Bowl because I was trying to get kind of what does Georgia do on a day-to-day? What does Ohio State do on a day-to-day throughout the season? Georgia, much more physical throughout the season. It shows up on the field. Now, Georgia's defense got pretty shredded by Ohio State's offense, but that's how good Ohio State's offense is. Ohio State's defense, not great against the good teams they played. And they did the thing
that you think that they have to do, and that's go get a defensive coordinator from a different system and pay him a boatload of money to change.
And Jim Knowles had been fantastic the previous year at Oklahoma State with not a bunch of NFL players. Malcolm Rodriguez turned out to be an NFL starter, but not a ton of NFL talent necessarily. He's got more now, but I don't know. They've got to fix that part of it. And perhaps the discussion we had about Lincoln Riley at the end of last season needs to be had about Ryan Day if that doesn't get better.
Well, I think too that people will say I'm a homer or I'm an asshole when I talk about this thing. But the thing I want you to say out loud is you think that Michigan is the 3rd best program in college football right now. Because that's what you just said.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I am because it felt like the 2022 version was better than the 2021 version. I don't know if they'll take another step forward, but if they do, then I feel very, very comfortable in that.
And that next step forward is the biggest step they'll have to take.
Right, because then it gets them into the Alabama and Georgia territory, which I do think that's a bigger step than the team I have at number 5. The teams I have at 5 and 6 can take that step more quickly.
One's already been 5.
There. Well, they both already been there, actually. I have LSU at 5.
Okay. I didn't even reveal my number 4 yet, but LSU is my 4.
Okay. All right.
And LSU is my 4 because that program is rock solid. It has won a recent national championship. I understand the circumstances of that championship were pretty hard to duplicate, but it existed. It happened. You can't take it away. Right. Also, they have Brian Kelly, who, honestly speaking, is the reason why Notre Dame is probably still relevant today.
Right.
They were at a really shaky
Yeah,
point.
I had a hard time figuring out where to put Notre Dame on this list because it was basically a leap of faith on Marcus Freeman because
But
their
LSU was
results were
hard.
Brian Kelly based.
LSU was hard because Michigan has made the playoff in back-to-back years, and LSU has not. But also LSU had probably a better season than we anticipated. They recruited very well, and their coach has a proven track record of not only being good in building programs, but making the playoff too. Also take into account that they are recruiting at a much higher clip, because I took recruiting into account here because you're also springing a little forward. Michigan's class last year wasn't very good.
Right.
So
I think portal recruiting matters too. And I think Michigan,
and they're very good at that, which is why Michigan's number 5 on my list.
Yeah.
And if you think about the steps that it took, if we would have done this list before they made the playoff 2 years ago, Michigan might be in danger of being at the bottom of this list or not on it at all. And they're number 5 on mine.
Yeah.
So I personally believe that there is a certain fraternity of elite level programs in college football. The two that are the president and the vice president of that frat are Alabama and Georgia. And I think that Ohio State is probably the closest program to that than any other team.
But
because they lost to Michigan, that doesn't go away.
LSU, from a personnel standpoint, can get there quickly.
And if you look at LSU's personnel and other teams on this list that are probably ranked below Michigan, Michigan has a further step or a further journey, as you mentioned, to get to that point. So, to make them the 3rd best college football program in the country is a little bit of an overreaction to 2 regular season wins when they haven't won a playoff game.
I'm just like the AD who hires a basketball coach because they made the Sweet 16 because they had one good weekend.
And I don't even know if you truly believe that they are the 3rd best program in college football.
I have a heart. If you'd asked me this last year, I'd have said absolutely not. No chance.
But consistency does matter.
Exactly.
And that's why I put them at 5. 5 is a really good place for them.
I'm not fighting you on that. I'm fine with that. I knew I was going to get some heat for having them where they were. I don't mind. It's fine because if I'm wrong and they take a step back, then I'm wrong. But if they do take another incremental step forward, I'm going to feel pretty good about where they are. So,
yeah, if they do take another incremental step forward, that means beating Ohio State again and winning a playoff game.
Exactly.
And if that happens, then I switch them in the beat of the heartbeat.
Yeah. So who's your number? Is Michigan your number 5? You said.
So I'm Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, LSU top 4. Michigan 5. Number 6 is Oklahoma for me.
Number 6 is Clemson for me. So you are putting a lot of faith in Brent Venables, which I have faith in Brent Venables recruiting. Mm-hmm. I need to see it on the field. Things like last year's Texas game bother me. How you don't have a backup quarterback ready and capable of running even a rudimentary offense scares me.
Well, the thing with Oklahoma for me is they get to absorb the consistency of making the playoff every year that happened during the Lincoln Riley era, if you look back 5 years, but they also get to absorb the recruiting and the program tradition and the potential of what is to come. That might be a little bit high for them, considering that the coach that brought them to this point is at another program that's ranked below them. But I really like what Oklahoma's class looked like last year, and I believe that I don't think that Brent Venables forgot how to coach defense. I'm sure
I'm not worried about their defense. I want to make sure their offense is going to be okay. And I know Jeff Levy's offenses have been good where he's been, and
they just signed maybe the best quarterback recruit in the country. Last
Jackson
year.
Arnold may wind up being the best quarterback in this class. He may wind up playing this year. Who knows? But here's the thing about Oklahoma. If Oklahoma bounces back on the field this season, and I see the on-field coaching acumen as a CEO head coach from Brent Venables, then I'm putting Oklahoma in the top 5 because his recruiting, the roster he will build there, and if he can do it on the field, then that's a program that can then compete for national titles. So, but I'm not there yet.
Clemson's my 7, Andy. So it's a good segue to the next one.
Clemson's my 6, and it would have been lower had they not hired Garrett Riley this year. The fact that Dabo Swinney admitted to himself that he needed to bring him some new ideas and then went out and got some of the best new ideas I think says a lot. And
yeah,
I was worried about that program going stale when they promoted from within after losing coordinators on both sides of the ball last year. That bothered me. I just it you look at their history when they have had an injection of new information and new ideas, they have made massive steps forward. And so offensively, they absolutely need that. They've become very stale on offense. Defensively, they're fine. That whether that's carryover from Venable's roster that he put together, or that the new group is doing fine coaching them, is probably a little bit of both. But that offense needs to match that defense. If it can, I've got them too low.
I almost feel like Oklahoma and Clemson are the inverse of each other, because Clemson gets to have all the success that they've had on the field the past 5 years, but I'm not so confident in their direction forward. And I like the idea that they went out and got the hottest name and offensive coordinator hires, and I know that that's been a struggle for them. I am not jazzed up about the recruiting, and I am also not jazzed up that the best talent evaluating head coach, who is the exception to the recruiting rule, lost a lot of the players that helped him identify those, or a lot of the
coaches,
those,
exactly.
Who's now also the coach at Oklahoma. So, like, when I first came on the show 2 years ago, I said on the show that I thought Clemson's time was up. And that was a major controversial statement at the time. The last 2 years, I feel a little vindicated for it. Now it's a matter of whether or not you think they're dead.
I don't.
And I don't think that they're dead. I'm putting them at 7 is not dead.
No.
But, like, if this list came out 2 years ago, Clemson would unquestionably be number 3.
Yes.
So,
or there would have been a point where Clemson was number 1.
Clemson was number 1 when they won the national championship last.
Yeah.
But they still were unquestionably. In 2009, they won a playoff game. Or 2019, they won a playoff game.
Correct. Yeah.
And that seems like a decade ago, but it's not that long ago. And I think that the placement of Clemson on my list is an illustration of direction I thought that the program is headed in. And if Garrett Riley changes course and they change course and they go back up.
Yeah, they just need to freshen up the offense. And if what Garrett Riley did at TCU last year is any indication, obviously Sonny Dykes had something to do with that too. But if what Garrett Riley did at TCU is even close to what he can do at Clemson, then they're going to be really good.
Can Clemson beat Georgia?
I got to see the offense. I got to see that offense. But personnel-wise,
look
maybe.
At the roster. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's every year that goes by. And NFL
remember, they played Georgia essentially to a stalemate at the start of the 2021 season when Georgia won a national title. So it's not. I don't think
every year that goes by and the players are leaving and the new classes that aren't elite come in, it gets watered down more and more.
All right.
So, we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong, but I think 7's a nice place for them.
So
your turn.
My 7 is Penn State.
Ooh.
Are you shocked by that? I
It's
feel like they start this next tier. Like consistency, we kind of know what we're going to get from them. Last year was supposed to be kind of a bridge year. They went 10-2. Now Drew Aller becomes the starting quarterback. Some of the more elite recruits age into where they should be very productive. I feel pretty good about Penn State right now, and I feel like they're extraordinarily consistent, and they kind of start the next tier of teams.
Yeah, so once you get out of the top 7, I feel like you're out of the elite tier of like what we've seen, right? And I think from 8 to 16 is when it gets most jumbled. So the fact that we're going to be off,
I don't think they're that different, which I think is going to be interesting when you do get to a 12-team playoff, because that's where you're going to have some weird results.
The problem that I've had with Penn State is that I can't imagine them being a top 8 program in college football when they've consistently lost to the other teams in their own division.
Right. You need them to be better than Ohio State or Michigan for a year.
Every now and then.
Yeah.
And it's been what, since 16?
16 was when they won the Big Ten. Yeah.
I don't want to make us sound old here, but we're pushing almost a decade here. since that special season. So I think they're consistent. They're represented on my list. They're not that high.
Okay.
But also my number 8 might be completely irrational, but I put USC at number 8.
Okay. I don't have USC at number 8, but I have somebody else currently in their conference. They won't be in the same conference a year from now.
Yeah. USC to me is more trending toward the future than the past results, but also too, they had the best player in college football last year. They were maybe a hamstring injury away from making the playoff in year 1 of the Riley era. I don't know if I would buy stock in a team at 8 more than that right now. I'm still holding on to the dream, Andy.
The only reason I have this team over USC at number 8 is because they're the ones that beat USC for the Pac-12 title. They're the ones that have won the past 2 Pac-12 titles. Mm-hmm. They are remarkably consistent as a program.
Yeah.
One of the most consistently well-coached programs in the country. And that is Utah. And is this me somewhat apologizing for unintentionally leaving Utah out when we make these lists of...
It's the overcompensation.
They're so freaking good year after year after year after year. You know what you're going to get from them. Like I thought about having USC higher than them, but I'm like, you know what? No, let USC beat them and we'll talk about it. Then we can just move them up. But yeah, I think the Utes have earned this. So, and that's at a certain point, results have
they beat them twice last year.
They did. So yeah,
you're right. And you know what? You make me feel bad because I agree with you, and like glorifying certain teams that haven't done it seems wrong, and I did that. So,
but I understand where you're coming from, and when we come back, I'll explain why I have USC where I have USC.
Do your financial goals feel out of reach? They don't have to be. With Chime Secured Credit Builder Visa Credit Card, you can start building credit with your own money through on-time payments and small everyday purchases like groceries, streaming, and gas. Members see an increase of 30 points to their credit scores on average. Chime reports your payments to the major credit bureaus and help you build credit over time, all with no annual fees, large security deposits, or credit checks to apply. Start making your financial dreams a reality with Chime. Signing up only takes 2 minutes and doesn't affect your credit score. Get started at chime.com/Andy. That's chime.com/Andy. The Chime Credit Builder Visa Card is issued by Stride Bank N.A. pursuant to a license from Visa USA. Chime checking account and $200 qualifying deposit required to apply for secured Chime Credit Builder Visa Credit Card. Based on a study conducted by Experian Credit Builder members, observed an average of 30-point FICO score increase after 8 months with regular on-time payments. Results may vary. See Chime.com for details. Out-of-network ATM withdrawal fees may apply except at MoneyPass ATMs in a 7-Eleven or any Allpoint or Visa Plus Alliance ATM. That's chime.com/Andy. Get started. Takes 2 minutes. Chime.com/Andy.
Welcome back. So, yes, I had Utah number 8, and I had.
Is that the team that is that the program you said overlooked a lot?
All the time. I feel like we always do. Like they're the ones we just mentally leave out when we're making all these lists. And
I'll give you some good news.
The best programs in the Pac-12, we leave them
They're
out.
on my list.
Good. They deserve to be.
Yeah, they're on my list. So not in the top 10, but they are. I'll give you my number 9, and that's Notre Dame.
Okay, so my number 9 is USC.
Okay, so we're close.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you completely on USC. My issue with USC is the same thing that I've been harping on since the Pac-12 championship game. They have to have a better defensive philosophy. I don't mean they necessarily have to have a different defensive coordinator. Everybody's like, oh, you're going to fire Alex Grinch and solve everything. Firing Alex Grinch won't solve the problem. The problem is top down. It's a vertical integration thing. They have to decide they want to be a team that can tackle at the end of the season. And that's why they're so low here, because I know that they're going to have one of the best offenses in the country every year as long as Lincoln Riley is there. Their quarterback will be in the hunt for the Heisman Trophy every year as long as Lincoln Riley is there.
Yeah, that's the whole thing of if there was a top 5 quarterback nationally, he's going to visit USC. Yeah. That fact alone is the reason why. But again, I feel like I should flip them because you convinced me And the point of this list wasn't to talk about the future; it's to talk about the past. And Utah's past is better than USC's past.
It's both. I mean, I think USC's future is bright, but can USC ascend to the top of this list? Only if Lincoln Riley decides he wants to have a team that can tackle in November.
If they figure out a solution to that issue, USC could jump into the top 4.
Yeah,
I think Utah is basically where it is.
Right. I don't know that they're gonna get higher than this unless suddenly they start reeling in 5-star after 5-star.
But I thought that Notre Dame absolutely had to be represented in the top 10. They've made the playoffs on multiple occasions.
The person who got them there is represented. Brian Kelly's team is in the top 5 for both of us.
Yeah, and listen, I'm a Marcus Freeman buyer.
Mm-hmm.
And after last year, the price might be down a little bit, but I'm still a buyer, I think. And you can't separate completely the accomplishments of the program from the person who led them there. Because if that were the case, then, this list might look different. I mean, I have Oklahoma 4 spots ahead of USC, and the person or 3 spots, 2 spots, whatever it was, that led Oklahoma to all their success is at USC, and he's behind. So I do think that the program has to absorb it, because the program, or the people who are listening to the show and the people who are going to get upset or happy about the things that they hear on the show assign the success of the program, not the coach. Notre Dame has just done too much in the last 6 years to be left out of the top 10. They've accomplished far more on the field than Penn State has. And I like the direction that they're recruiting in. They're headed in recruiting. And I think their coach is sharp.
More in the field than Penn State has? Have they?
Yeah. How many times have they made the playoff?
Okay. What have they had to play Ohio State and Michigan all those seasons?
Yeah. I mean, I guess not. No.
So where are the wins from Notre Dame that are so much better than the wins by Penn State?
Well, I weight playoff appearances. So if we want to talk about ease of path, then sure. You could say that Penn State.
They're both going to make it in the next iteration in those situations. So
yeah, and Notre Dame beat Clemson one year.
Figure it out.
Notre Dame beat Clemson, which is probably better than any win that Penn State's had.
There you go. There's one of them. That's
also their starting quarterback was out. So I mean, you could go down a rabbit hole of whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
But I don't think that I can brush away the fact that Notre Dame's schedule doesn't have the top end.
Well, it does this year.
Now it does, because it has Ohio State and USC.
Yeah.
But it is a hard schedule. I don't think their schedule.
Oh, I don't think their schedule is cake. I've never
making
been
the
one
playoff.
Of those
is I mean, I don't know. If you think that Penn State has accomplished more on the field than Notre Dame, I guess I could listen to that. But losing to better teams all the time, and saying you had to play them is not a win.
The guy who did that is LSU's coach. The guy who coaches Notre Dame now lost to Marshall and Stanford last year.
Yeah, but Notre Dame might have been higher than 9 if Brian Kelly were still the head coach too.
Notre Dame would have been a lot higher than 9 if Brian Kelly was the head coach.
Yeah, so it's represented in my calculus.
So there's never been any calculus going through your brain. So,
you just said I could do okay at Princeton yesterday, and now you're giving me that crap.
Well, you're probably majoring in philosophy. Let's be real.
Yeah.
You would have those philosophy professors spinning in circles. You're like, listen, do you know how hard peanut butter is to wash off? Are you sure you take that $10 million? Okay, so I had 10 Oklahoma, and this is my faith in the program of always being good. This is my faith in Brent Venables to recruit. This is my question mark of Brent Venables on-field coach. He can if he shows this year that he is a very good on-field coach, I'm putting them probably in the top 5 if we do this again next year.
It could happen. We should do it
in
an
instant. Yeah.
I'm with you. So this was a crucial spot for me, because I think being a top 10 program in college football is a huge accomplishment.
I think it's an arbitrary number because it has a 0 as the last digit.
I think that it is my personal award to you. And I reached on this one, I think. Okay. And I don't know if did TCU make your list?
They did, yes.
Okay, TCU's 10 for me. I don't think you can leave out the team that made the national championship game last year. They have a coach that has a clear and identifiable plan. They are in a very advantageous recruiting area. They've been a consistently good football team on the field. They haven't always had the results in terms of 10-win seasons, but they've been tough. Gary Patterson, this isn't a program that just had one crazy year. They should have made the playoff potentially in 14. I like what Sonny Dykes is doing there, and I want to reward a team that not only made the playoff, but won a playoff game against the team that you have number 3 represented in my top 10 nationally.
I like it. I like it. So number 11 for me is Notre Dame. And again,
Okay.
that is, I respect the way Marcus Freeman recruits. I think that program also has some built-in recruiting advantages and disadvantages that we've talked about tons of times on the show. I have faith in Marcus Freeman to improve upon last year. They've got to get better defensively, but that's his side of the ball. We discussed at length the offensive coordinator search, but also I thought Pete Sampson pointed out something interesting when he was on the show and made a very good point. Like whoever the offensive coordinator was going to be, because at that time they hadn't hired one, but it's Jared Parker, who's been promoted, is going to have a lot to work with. 2 NFL tackles. Sam Hartman, a very accomplished college quarterback who's playing with more talent than he's ever played with before. A couple of really good backs, a good tight end. Like they're going to be pretty good offensively. The defense will need to pick up the slack this time because they've lost some people. But that's Marcus Freeman's side of the ball. So I think they'll probably get better and be able to rise up this list. But it's the same questions I have about Brent Venables. I need to see it first before I can put you up there.
Okay, so you went through your top 11, right? My number 11 is Penn State. I still think a very nice ranking for them. And the only inconsistencies that you and I have in the top 11 are TCU is in my top 11 and Utah is in your top 11, but every other team is in there and represented. So I feel pretty good about where we're headed right now. I think this is where it becomes a dumpster fire.
I don't know. I think we're going to be somewhat similar here. Who do you have at number 12?
Oregon.
Me too.
Okay. Well, you can explain why Oregon is 12, but my 13 is Utah.
Okay. That makes it. My 13 is Tennessee. So okay. Oregon at 12. They've been very consistent in the Pac-12, and I do realize that Mario Cristobal being gone affects that. But I also think that Dan Lanning came in and looked like a guy who knew what he was doing. Bo Nix got hurt at a very not advantageous time. They lost to Washington, which I don't have Washington on this list, but if there was a 17 and an 18, it'd be 2 schools that start with W, Washington, Wisconsin, in some form or fashion. It's just the body of work isn't there quite. Kalen DeBoer, we've seen one really good year from him at Washington. He was good at Fresno State, but I kind of want to see with that program because Chris Peterson's an all-time great coach, and what he did at Washington was pretty special. But it's not been the easiest place to win this century. So, did DeBoer kind of catch lightning in a bottle, or is he that guy? If he's that guy, then Washington's probably on this list next year and replacing somebody else. But Oregon, I think, has been consistently a place that top recruits want to go. They seem to be ahead of the curve on NIL. Lanning seems to get it, seems to understand how the new world's going to work. And I like that they got a defensive minded head coach, but they're not super conservative on offense. Like I think they've got a good mix going there. And I'm going to give Utah the nod because they are winning that league right now. But I think Oregon is the team that could potentially dominate that league going forward once USC's out.
I think that Utah being represented on the list at all is a big deal because we're talking about the top 16 programs in college football right now. And they have won the conference and that the Ode is being represented. I don't know if I think they have a better football program than Oregon and USC do right now. Like if I had to buy stock in all 3 of them for the next 10 years, I would buy the least amount in Utah because
we also don't know how much longer Kyle Whittingham is going to be coaching.
I feel like Utah's like
He's
Coca-Cola
been
stock.
there
It's
a
like, you know what
long
it's going to
time.
be.
Yeah.
You're going to get your dividends. You're going to make your gains. But like USC and Oregon have a chance to, as the kids would say, go to the moon. I watched the Netflix special on the GameStop thing the other day, so I want to use
I
stock
watched.
lingo.
I'm about halfway through it. I need to finish that one up.
I
All
love
right.
it.
So I had Oregon 12. You had Oregon 12. My 13 is Tennessee. Now, some of this is a little bit of faith in Josh Heupel, because I didn't have any expectations of him when he got to UCF, and he turned out to be really, really good there.
Mm-hmm.
And then guess what? He was good in the same ways at Tennessee. And that tells me that maybe that's just him. And
Probably good in better ways.
yeah. So I know there are folks on the, from the Jeremy Pruitt staff who will say, well, we got you some pretty good offensive linemen. What are you going to do when those guys aren't there anymore? And maybe that's the case, but I got a feeling they're going to recruit some pretty good offensive linemen under this staff as well. I think they have a pretty bright potential at Tennessee. I realize it's one good year, but I wasn't sure I was going to see another good year like that at Tennessee.
If
that's
you
how
would have asked
rough
me,
it had gotten there.
If you asked me a year ago if Tennessee would be on this list, I would have hysterically laughed at you.
Oh, I know. Same thing. Because I thought the expectations for them going into last year were absurdly high, and then they surpassed them.
Yes. Okay, so we're on 14 for me because I did 10 TCU, 11 Penn State, 12 Oregon, 13 Utah. 14,
Mm-hmm.
a little out of left field here.
Okay.
Baylor.
I like it. Baylor's another one I heavily considered. And, it's interesting because I didn't know how much credit to give Matt Rule, because he took over when they were at absolute rock bottom and had them in the Big 12 championship game. And then Dave Aranda wins the Big 12 title, but a lot of those players were recruited by Rule. So,
well, the thing that I think is interesting about Baylor's football program is, and it's been clearly been through some stuff, some serious stuff. It has seemed to transcend everything around it to continually be a competitive football team. And I think that there's something about that program that keeps it afloat regardless of who the head coach is. And I think I looked this up. I think they've won double-digit games 6 out of the last 11 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
Like, they're a wildly consistent program. They won the conference 2 years ago.
Well, they're a wildly consistent program lately. They're kind of up and down.
But I don't know. I just thought you could have made the case, because here I was also considering Oklahoma State, who is wildly consistent for who they are.
Their arrow doesn't feel like it's going up right now.
It does not. And I just thought Baylor at least broke through and won the conference. Like, Oklahoma State's always good, and they probably have had more 10-win seasons in the last 10 years than Baylor has, but they haven't broken through and won the conference, unless I'm forgetting one. Oklahoma won it like 8 or 9 years in a row, and then the last two are Kansas State and Baylor.
Oklahoma State came within a yard of winning it when Baylor did.
Yes.
And then Oklahoma State won.
And maybe that's the difference on this list. But I thought it would be important to put a second non-sexy Big 12 team in here to remind people that conference still might be pretty good once the two big dogs leave. And not going to give anything away here, but Texas does not make my list.
Didn't make mine either. You got to earn it. Got to show it on the field. So 14 for me was TCU. And this was a case of, I don't know how much of last year was lightning in a bottle. I think Sonny Dykes has a very coherent plan. I think what you saw them do probably got some people excited. They did a great job in the transfer portal last year. It seems like they've chosen well out of the transfer portal this year. Obviously, people are going to be thinking about them front of mind. They're in a great recruiting area. I just don't know. Like, I think roster-wise, they may wind up taking a little step back this year, but you have to give them credit for what they did last year and see the potential in what they can do.
And I over-rewarded them for it, because I think there is a huge distinction between making the playoff and winning a playoff game. And I know I was the first person to tell you, hey, they didn't have to play Georgia or Alabama in the first round.
So they won a playoff game.
They still won a playoff game. And the list of teams who have won a playoff game is single digits, isn't it?
Exactly.
So they're one of those teams. They're on my list. There's 2 Big 12 teams. I had Tennessee 15 because of what they did last year and where they're headed. I like the direction there. I think the NIL stuff too gives them a little boost. And it's like they pulled off an NIL deal for a really good player, and it wasn't dysfunctional. Like it was what it was.
Everything up.
And I
he actually Pied Piper some other recruits, and
he's like they're working out now. Like
when I went and did that story on him last April when he was in Knoxville, we're talking about Nico Iamaleava, the quarterback. He struck me as there probably aren't a lot of personality types where you can do this sort of thing and it be okay, but he has the right personality for it. He's one of those people that everybody seems to like. And I think that's very helpful. And if he turns out to be a great quarterback, then even better. But we'll see how that goes. But I'm with you on the Tennessee. And that's why I had Oregon up here too, because they seem to be thinking ahead on that sort of thing too. My 15, Ari, was Kansas State. I think Chris Kleiman's got his formula figured out now. And, you looked at what he did at North Dakota State, where he kind of understood exactly what he needed to do. In that case, it was win the national championship in the FCS every year. This is a little higher degree of difficulty situation probably at Kansas State. But Bill Snyder had his formula. It's not the same as the Bill Snyder formula, but I think it feels very similar to it. It's highly developmental, but you also sprinkle in every once in a while, you get a big time recruit like Avery Johnson, who we talked about yesterday, is a big quarterback recruit who's local for them, and they got him.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Andy. Well, we're at number 16 for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think mine might make you mad, or you might be in agreement with it.
Watch it be the one I picked.
I'm sure it was.
Mine is about 2 hours from me, from where I live.
I knew it.
Florida State.
I knew it. I knew they were going to make your list.
I think they're trending up. I think they have steadily improved. Even when they weren't winning under Mike Norvell, they were playing hard for him. Like they did not quit on him. And the way he is recruited out of the transfer portal, I think, is probably the most consistently good portal recruiting that we've seen so far. I think what Harbaugh does is really good. I think what Lane Kiffin has done is good. But I think Norvell has a very good eye in the portal.
You're going to hate me.
I'm ready.
I could not leave off the team you wanted to put on yours.
Wisconsin?
Wisconsin's number 16.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I am
think
convinced Wisconsin will be on this list next year because I think Luke Fickell will do magical things there.
They also have been they've just been the most consistent program.
Except the last 3 years. They were
I don't know. I still think the thing that we like about Wisconsin still exists, and they found a person that can continue on with the plan that is proven.
Listen,
and
I'm convinced they're on this list next year. Convinced.
Yeah. That was fun.
I liked it. No,
in the middle of it says Ari has lost the plot. I don't know what I said, but I don't know.
You've lost the plot.
Was it irrational? I don't know. But here's the funniest thing about this list, Andy. Teams that did not make it for both of us or one of us.
Mm-hmm.
Miami.
Yep.
Florida State made your list. They did not make mine. North Carolina didn't make it.
Texas
A&M did not make it. A&M did not make it.
Florida
didn't make it.
Did we make a mistake? Should Ole Miss be on one of our lists or both of our lists? They've been pretty good.
The thing is of course we could have made a mistake. This was incredibly hard.
Yeah.
But who would you feel good taking off your list then?
That's the problem.
That's the thing. Problem. It's but we also there's more. Iowa didn't make it, and I think if they weren't such a disaster offensively the last year, they could have made it. Michigan State was off. Washington didn't make it.
That was a hard one for me. I think if Washington or Wisconsin would have been the next two on my list.
Yeah, and those were the two that I had a hard time with. But Arkansas football didn't make it. Kentucky, who's been pretty consistent with who they've been, didn't make it. And guess who else didn't make it? Auburn.
I have a feeling if Hugh Freeze does what he's supposed to do, we'll have Auburn on this list consistently within a couple of years.
And that's Into Wilderness here just said that Nebraska is going to be the next Wisconsin. I think it's possible.
And that's fine. And now the dynamics of the Big Ten change Because one thing Wisconsin took advantage of was being in the weaker division. I think the hiring of Luke Fickell is an admission of now we understand
we have to figure it out.
We got to compete with everybody, and we're willing to do that. So
but it's actually like the reason why Wisconsin got put over my list isn't they've been inconsistent for the past 4 years, but we're in the Big Ten championship game every year before that. It was a program that identified that it wanted more for itself, did something that shocked the world, paid a lot of money to do it, and went out and got the best coach that they could get. Like to me, that is the behavior of a team that's committed to winning.
Exactly. That's it. And the fact that what we know about Luke Fickell as a person who's pretty thoughtful and does not make rash decisions, like he looked at that thing and was like, ooh, this is where I want to be. That is very promising. So yeah, if we're doing the preview of the next time we do this list, I think we'll feel very comfortable putting Wisconsin on that list. Michael Grubbs says anything not AskClown certified has no credibility with me. That's right. The Andy Staples Show, computer laptop, organized Win Nexus is coming back. Ari and I have discussed it. We're going to bring it back within the next couple of weeks. I think there's a lot of potential for, well, I mean, it's science. We just feed the numbers in and then the computer spits it out.
But we need to have one in the spring.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
We need to have one in the spring. Then we need to have one after spring practice and after that transfer portal period where everything completely changes. And then we need to have another one in the middle of the summer, like in June, where everything changes again.
If it were up to me, and maybe we'll change this, as like we should just do an AskClown rankings the first of every month. Oh, I don't know if that's overkill, but I don't think you could do too much.
Could we make the second of every month? And like in February, Groundhog Day could be AskClown Day.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, why not?
Hey, I like your hat, bud. Where did you? Which location were you at? Where you bought that?
Where did I buy this one? I actually think I bought this one I might have bought this one in Fort Valley, Georgia. This might not have been a Texas buy.
Yeah, you and I both wearing a hat on the same episode doesn't happen very often.
No. I found this one had gotten buried under some stuff in my closet, and I found it this morning, and I was like, we got to rock the Bucky the Beaver hat. I'm wearing my Bucky's hat. If you're not watching on the YouTube channel, Ari is always wearing the hat of some glorious resort somewhere that costs way too much money.
I actually had a conversation with my wife about this. I wear this one all the time, and it's kind of worn out a little bit. Like I need to go to a lot of really swanky resorts that I'm not staying at and buy some more hats.
There you go.
I went to Lids, and
it's the non-Southern edition of the Masters hat is what it is.
Yeah, I guess so. Like I don't play golf. Like I want to learn. I want to take lessons, but I can't. I love golf hats, but I feel like if I wore golf hats, I'd be a poser. You know?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course you would.
I can't wear professional sports teams because I don't want to look like a plebe. You know? Is that the right word? So that kind of leaves me with what? Nike hats and hotel hats. Like I don't even know what
I have. I have restaurant hats and obviously gas station hats.
Yeah,
but
gas station hat. Like if I could get one that said Loves across, I'd wear that.
Oh, I know a guy. I know a guy who can get you some Loves merchandise.
Do you?
Gabe Eichert, former Oklahoma Center, friend of the program, friend of the podcast, dedicated listener. He's listening. Maybe not right now, but he will listen to this at some point.
I hope
Gabe,
so.
Ari needs some Loves merch.
When I'm on road trips, I always make a point to stop off at unique local type gas stations because that's like my thing.
Loves is not that.
But always have to stop at least one Loves.
Yes.
Because it's consistent. You know what you're going to get, and the bathrooms tend to be clean.
Bathrooms are very clean. And that's where the Bucky's just stands out completely. And no, I agree. But no, I do.
Sometimes I stop at Bucky's to go to the bathroom when I don't have to go. Just because I know.
Exactly, because it's so nice and squeaky clean. I also have a bunch of those Gorin Brothers, the farm hats with the different animals on them. I like them a lot. I got one that has a chameleon on it, and it just says Karma.
Oh,
just recently. That's my newest one. So
my wife took me to Vegas a few weeks ago to see Sebastian Maniscalco at the Wynn. And I walked by the shop and they had a bunch of new Win hats that I would have liked to have, but I wasn't wearing a backpack or anything, and I wouldn't carry it around all night. So I
popped the hat on, and you already had a hat
wear
on?
the hat. We were going to a nice dinner, so I I missed the opportunity. But if you have to win and you want to buy me the hat, I'll Venmo you and I'll tell you which one I want, and then you can.
I've got a bet for later this season that we can, or once the season starts, that we can do, because you are such a fan of hats and wear one on pretty much every episode. We're going to have a situation where if you lose the bet, you have to wear one of those giant hats for an entire episode.
I don't even know where you get those. But yeah,
everything's available on the internet, Ari.
Yeah, when Dan Rubenstein was making fun of me for the hotels that I put on my hats, I tried to find a Fairfield Inn one, and I bought
I don't think
one.
they make that. Oh, they made
bought one, and
wow.
I got an email notification saying before we put your order in, you have to prove you're an employee at one, and I couldn't get it. It was an employee only hat. And then I saw Golick got that Chili's hat.
Yeah.
Did you see that Chili's hat?
Oh yeah.
With the cactus on it. I went to Chili's website to try to find the hat, and they did not have it. And I'm like, I'll offer him way more than it's worth for that Chili's hat.
I gotta see if they make a Waffle House one. You can buy Waffle House merch off the website. They have sleeves with the Waffle House logo on them that like these that you put them. You wear them on your forearms, basically. It's like something Jason Williams would have worn in the NBA, but with the Waffle House logo.
Yeah. So my summer resolution is to make sure I go into the fall with some new hats.
Well, I am looking forward to you losing a bet and having to wear a giant hat on the show.
I'll wear that. I'll wear that anyway.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Ari, it's been a pleasure. I don't think our list pisses many people off as we will see. We'll put it on the internet and then
there's gonna be a lot.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that if you pissed somebody off, we all had the same teams represented, but I feel like because we were kind of within 5 spots of each other, that somebody being like the person who will get mad at me for ranking Ohio State ahead of Michigan will love you, and vice versa.
I think so.
People who will think I overranked Oklahoma will be happy that you underranked them, and Notre Dame. Like I think that they were both represented, but we kind of hit all the rankings in the right spot, at least one of us. So hopefully you're not too angry. Just know if you're listening to this and you're filled with rage, it's hard. It's really hard. It's not an easy thing to do.
Just know this. Yeah. If you have 2 idiots rank the teams, you'll be happier. So you're welcome. We'll talk to you later.